Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured, why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description and every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say, I'm watching so-and-so show. And then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it. And that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 1, Episode 9 of FX's Shogun, entitled Crimson Sky. I think this title is interesting for this episode because I don't know about you guys, but I had a certain expectation of what Crimson Sky was, and to a degree, I think we're still likely to get that version of Crimson Sky next week in the finale, but I think this episode showcased not a different version of Crimson Sky, but I think like maybe like the unspoken first steps of Crimson Sky. Crimson Sky has always likely been the plan for Toranaga. It was never clear to us that Crimson Sky begins with the sacrifices of both Hiramatsu and this week Mariko. All season, I've talked about how death is viewed within this culture, and it's never been more evident than in this penultimate episode. And I think we all ended this episode staggered by the loss of Mariko, but that's how we view death. That had to have been for her a glorious end, getting to both serve Toranaga greatly with her death, redeem her family name simultaneously, but then also be relieved of the shame over the actions of her father. You know, I also loved how we've had to watch Mariko be humble and subservient and stay behind her eightfold fence all season, but when given the freedom of you can now pursue the death that you wanted so badly, we get to see her be a total badass for the vast majority of this episode. And since this episode largely revolved around Mariko, I want to focus this video on her character too. Kind of like my own little, I guess, in memoriam thing. And I want to start at the obvious place of Anna Sawai's performance in the role. It's only April, so Emmy talk is kind of crazy, but I think a nomination is all but guaranteed here. Her work was masterful, most of it being when I say most of it being unspoken, obviously most of her role is not unspoken, but most of the stuff that really stood out to me was unspoken. You know, conveying so much through facial expressions. She just did so much with doing so little. And when I say so little, I mean little in... I don't mean little in significance. Very large in significance, but little in big sweeping moments or facial expressions. Very subtle things. So she did a lot with being very, very, very subtle. All Mariko's hallmark characteristics: her loyalty, her pride, her shame, her yearning to serve admirably, but also to die honorably. All of this consistently conveyed via body language and the slightest of tweaks to facial expressions. Just an incredible performance. Truly remarkable. And the show, I think, will be less without her. Unfortunately for us, we should reap the benefits of Toranaga's revenge next week in the finale, and it should be sweet. So once we begin the episode proper this week, we quickly learn what's to happen once our crew reaches Osaka. Yabashika, of course, plans to try to curry favor with Ishido to spare his life. offering up Blackthorn as something of like a bargaining chip, kind of like, he's got these skills so he could be of use to you, and I brought him here for you, so, I deserve to be spared. Yabashika is later told that his offer of an alliance is accepted, but on one condition, and we don't hear the condition at the time, but we will learn about that one condition at the end of the episode. Mariko doesn't fully convey her intentions on the boat as they approach Osaka, but she does explain to Blackthorn and reiterate to the audience that Ishido is holding the family of the regents captive to control them, to control the regents, that is. He's pretending like he's merely holding them up with like red tape and shit like that because he can't appear to be holding these important people and their families, these important people's families against their will. So once Mariko is in front of Ishido, her plan is made clear. She's to put Ishido in the awkward position of either freeing all of herself and all of these hostages, or admitting that he's holding them hostage. And in what is the first of several great scenes in this episode, she belittles him in front of everyone to the point of putting him in the position to, again, not hold her captive, but just not give her the permits to leave while her disrespectful conduct is reviewed. Red tape, right? And she continues to speak very brazenly, very confidently, very, not disrespectfully, but commanding her own respect. Speaking to her heritage, the legacy of her family, and not even demanding that she be allowed to leave, but stating that she will leave in the morning. Like I'm not asking, I'm leaving. Ishido tries to put on his big boy pants and shut the shit down, but sure enough, in the morning, Mariko is making her exit. She's, of course, held up at the gates, and we're treated to yet another magnificent scene in this episode in which, first, her men attempt to fight her way out. She's like, kill this motherfucker. And then one of the guys just goes and does it. But once they're all cut down, all of her men, she attempts to fight her way out herself in a scene that, what it kind of reminded me of? It reminded me of how, even though the movie's not great, in Star Wars Attack of the Clones, Episode 2, how... at one point we come to realize that we're about to see Yoda fight, and he like reaches for his lightsaber. That was the scene where Mariko like puts her hand out and they bring the fucking I don't know what that weapon is called, but that weapon to her. That was sweet. So like I said, she attempts to fight her way out on her own. She puts on a great show while Blackthorn and her son watch from above. It's a great scene because she's so desperate to fight, so willing and eager to die, but the men at the gate know that they can't kill her either. So it's like an exercise of futility. Like she's just kicking everybody's ass, knocking away all the spears and shit, but they can't do anything to her, but she's not doing enough to actually make her way out. But I think she knew that this is where she was going to end up. So finally defeated, Mariko says that they're going to retreat, but since she can't suffer the humiliation and shame of not being able to fulfill Toranaga's order of her to come back, she'll be killing herself at sunset. And again, this puts Ishido in a difficult spot. He knows that if he lets Mariko go, it opens the floodgates to all the other prisoners demanding their release. But if she stays and she dies, whether at the hands of his men or him or at her own hand, it doesn't fucking matter, it will reveal that these families are in fact hostages, and he would have also the disgrace of such an honored person having done this on his watch. So then the full court press to get Mariko to change her mind begins. And it starts with Mariko. It starts with Lady Ochiba, who used a conversation with Blackthorn as a ruse to get Mariko there as translator so they could speak freely with each other. Yet another great scene. They essentially argue over who's at fault for them being at this point, who's playing whose games and whatnot. Ochiba mentions Mariko's son, which is a sore spot for her, as we learned in previous scenes. We see in the cold open, we see her attempting to escape Buntaro, I think they said for the third time while pregnant. We also learned that her son is ashamed of her and his family's name. He wants to marry into, I think it was Kiyama's family. So a lot of shit going on for her in that regard. So for Ochiba to bring up the son, that was a breaking point for her. And then in another great scene, there's a lot of them, Blackthorn tries to convince her to change her mind as well. He correctly points out that she'd walk into a sword to prove that it's sharp, which was a great line. And then he just flatly begs for her to stay alive for him. I like how she held his hand and didn't say anything. She held his hand like cute, but no. And then she leaves. And like I said up top, I feel like this was always a suicide mission for Mariko, and she knew that up front. She was never meant to live through this, nor did she want to. The show has been showing us this and building up to this all season. The only drama here was when/how it would happen, not if. Now, we're treated to finally, I think the final great moment of this episode, the great scene, which is Mariko. No, not the final one, but Mariko's attempted suicide. She, like I said earlier, she requested. Actually, no, I didn't say this earlier. I mentioned Kiyama in a different context. Earlier, she had requested that Kiyama second her, as suicide means eternal damnation for Christians. It's not accepted. So, she asked Kiyama to second her because then the decapitation is the official means of death. So then it's not a suicide. She can avoid hell. But Kiyama fails to show up to her suicide party, and the pain from the belief that eternal damnation was in her future was on Anna Sawai's face, and it was a remarkable shot. And in a moment that I saw coming but was still damn good, Blackthorn offers to second her. And you guys know how much that means. Like, it's more than just filling in. Like, it's making sure that she can die in peace, feeling like she hasn't eternally damned herself. But more importantly, it's the ultimate show of love to be willing to do that for someone, something that's going to hurt him so much. It's for her, but for him, it's not going to feel like it's for her. It's going to hurt him, but he does that because it is for her. And the looks on both their faces, again, well done. Great acting, all parties. But alas, no decapitations out of love will be taking place tonight, as Shido arrives at the last minute and he gives Mariko the permits to leave and says that he'll grant permits for the others as well, because they immediately barrage him like, I want to go too. But it's a short-lived victory, as we quickly come to learn the favor that Shido asked of Yabashige in exchange for their alliance. Yabashige lets his shinobi, aka ninjas, to kill Mariko and anyone else before they can leave. He has to feign ignorance as he tries to escape with Mariko and Blackthorn. They end up at a dead end, trapped in a room with Shinobi on the other side. Yabashige knows that they're going to blow that door down, and Mariko sees the opportunity. And the rest, as they say, is history. A great episode that sets up what will almost surely be a great finale. I think we can expect Toranaga to arrive in Osaka in short order, but what's going to happen to Yabashige and Blackthorn in the immediate aftermath of this? Like, now that the door is blown open and Mariko is dead, once the shinobi get inside that room, what happens with Yabashige and Blackthorn? Presumably, they were there to kill Mariko, not Yabashige and Blackthorn. And Yabashige is, let them in, so he's in favor with Ishido, as I would assume Blackthorn is. That, if there's going to be a conversation between Blackthorn and Ishido after what just happened to Mariko, that's going to be a good scene. So, I want to wrap up by just kind of giving this little thought. I'm going to assume we're going to get another season of The Bear this summer, as the first two seasons came out each of the last 2 summers. That season of The Bear is already preemptively holding the number one spot for me for TV in 2024. But Shogun is in a position with next week's finale to really put its flag in the sand and state its case for the number 1 spot. And I can't wait to see what they have in store. So let me know what you guys thought about this penultimate episode. Let me know what you thought about Mariko and Anna Sawai this season. You give your own little in memoriam for her in the comments. And until next week and the finale, peace.